the death of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Happening now, Germany marking 30 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall, which paved the way for the reunification of the country.
Yeah, you see German Chancellor Angela Merkel there. She's among the leaders from Central and Eastern Europe who are taking part in the ceremonies today. Now, this wall was built in 1961. It marked the split between East and West and was lined with watchtowers, electric fences, armed guards. Well, on November 9th, 1989, people from both sides swarmed to chip away at that wall that divided their city. Frederick Pleitgen is with us now from Berlin. Frederick, who's there today?
Well, what you have there today is obviously the leaders of Germany, Angela Merkel, the president of Germany as well, and then also leaders of Central European countries who, of course, were so important in bringing the wall down as well, in undermining communism. But one of the main things that they're doing today is they're remembering, of course, the wall as it came down, but also how devastating the wall was and how dangerous the wall was to the people who were living behind it. Here's what we're learning.
The line of demarcation in the Cold War lies in Berlin.
For 28 years, the Berlin Wall symbolized the struggle between capitalism and communism, and the cruel division between the people of East and West Berlin.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
So here at CNN, we actually own our own CNN Trabant. This was the epitome of communist East German automotive engineering, and for the
we are sifting through some of the most vivid testimony yet in the White House pressure campaign against Ukraine that is at the center of this impeachment inquiry. Transcripts just released from Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a current member of the President's National Security Council, and Fiona Hill, former deputy to then National Security Advisor John Bolton. Both Vindman and Hill were firsthand witnesses to some of the key flashpoints at the heart of this scandal.
The Trump-Zelensky meeting as a way to get Ukraine to do the political investigations into Biden, and that it was cooked up by Mulvaney. Vindman testifying that there was a conversation with Mulvaney, and this is what was required in order to get a meeting. They had to deliver an investigation. Vindman saying the bribery was explicit, no ambiguity. According to other testimony released today, this from another National Security Council official, Fiona Hill, Mulvaney also was all up in the negotiation. Sondland repeatedly saying
Jim Jordan setting the record straight on the Sondland-Trump phone call. We'll show you the clip in a moment, but before we do, please do make sure you are still subscribed to our channel with notifications turned on. If this is your first time viewing, go ahead and tap that subscribe button down below. Be sure to hit the notification bell. 100% fed up reports of the Democrats and their lapdog media. Well, they have been working overtime to spin the testimony from Special Envoy Volker and Ambassador Gordon Sondland to imply that President Trump asked for a quid pro quo. Well, Jim Jordan just set the record straight with the transcript from Sondland's testimony. Here it is. Before sending that text, Ambassador Sondland had a phone call with the president. Sondland asked President Trump, "What do you want from Ukraine?" The president said, "I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I want Zelensky to do the right thing, to do what he ran on." There you go. Seems pretty clear. And then he has you can see the transcript below. Now, this is all before sending the text. He had the phone call, okay? And he told him no quid pro quo. Seems pretty cut and dry. I don't want any of that. I just want to do the right thing. And then Representative Jim Jordan said there was no quid quo pro, there was no pressure. Watch.
As I've said before, the fundamental facts have never changed.
Here now with a look at what is ahead in those impeachment hearings is Washington Post national correspondent Philip Bump. Philip, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start broad picture here. We start these public hearings on Wednesday. Right. What are the Democrats hoping to get out of this? Because obviously we've started to see some of those transcripts from the closed door hearings already.
Right. Well, I think what they're hoping to get here is to have these people speaking publicly, get it on television, have people in America be more broadly aware of what it is that they're saying. Right. I mean, I think the question is, impeachment polling is sort of stagnant at this point. It was spiked after the inquiry began. It hasn't really changed much since then. Democrats really want to see that move. The question is, how will this be covered in conservative media in particular? Will it be aired regularly or not? I think that remains to be seen.
Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has indicated that he may know a little something about Ukraine, and he's willing to testify just as long as a judge orders him to do it.
Right.
What can we make of this, really?
Sure, I think we make a couple things of it. First of all, John Bolton, very much an institutionalist. He doesn't want to just go out there and say, I'm going to ignore executive privilege and adhere to what the House wants to do. He really does see this probably as a legal fight between these two branches of government, wants the courts to settle that. Of course he knows what happened, right? I mean, he was in the room for some of these meetings. He was the guy who was ostensibly in charge of what was happening from the White House's end on foreign policy. So there's certainly things that he knows, and that may actually influence the courts to say, you know what, executive privilege in this case doesn't even apply because this is so important.
But could he get immunity?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's any, I don't think there's any criminality that's suspected by Bolton. I think it certainly is the case, though, that he could offer a lot of insight into what actually happened.
He certainly is the key to all of this, or at least wants people to believe that he's the key to all of this. 8 depositions have been released so far. How is the public testimony going to be different than those 8 depositions?
That also remains to be seen, but I think there are 2 ways. The first is, since the depositions are already out there, the members of Congress who are interviewing folks will be much better prepared. They'll know exactly what to expect, what questions to ask to elicit more information. And I think the witnesses themselves will probably be a little bit more circumscribed. They'll be a little bit more nervous about offering their opinions because this is televised, because this is open, and I think it'll be a lot more contentious.
One of the names that we've seen besides Bolton, obviously, is Mick Mulvaney. We've seen his name a lot. He didn't show up for his deposition. What do we know, though, that he knows from other testimony right now?
Right. Well, he's going to be an interesting case. And he actually, the Post reported this morning, he's joined that Bolton lawsuit. So he's going to wait and see what the courts say he has to do as well. He was very much implicated in the testimony that was released yesterday as having sort of directed Gordon Sondland, the EU ambassador, to take a lot of these actions. I'd be very interested, if he is forced to actually come and testify, whether he is very open about what he knows. I mean, he already admitted that there was a quid pro quo last month, essentially. Right. Yep. Or if he does this, I don't know, I don't remember, which is what Sondland did on.
It'd be interesting to see Mulvaney and Bolton up there together.
It would.
Yeah, right. Be unlikely.
New daytime drama.
Philip Bump, thank you very much. Sure. A reminder, CBS News will bring you live coverage of the impeachment hearings and testimony on Wednesday and Friday morning.
Transcript. So a lot of times the Democrats are asking questions that are specific to this impeachment inquiry. We have seen a different line of questioning from the Republicans.
But we've seen a line of questioning, just to drive that point home. The idea that when a Republican member of Congress gets a question, I'm just like, no. They ask questions. Keep going.
They ask their questions. Right. And they haven't given up any of their time as far as we have seen. So there have been some Republicans who've decided not to show up. That's their own decision. That's not because the Democrats said you can't come in. So the reality is that even though they're asking different types of questions, they're both at the table and they're both equally represented.
Okay, so you are tasked with going through these things. You're going to have glasses like me soon. Just too much reading on a computer.
I already have contacts.
Oh, okay. So how much is it worth reading the whole transcript for? How much is contained in here?
We, the reporters covering this, have to read every page, and we do. But then what we're doing is cutting down and filling out this story, because it started with the whistleblower complaint, right? And then what we saw is kind of the bare bones being filled in by each individual person's testimony. And what they have all come to acknowledge at this point is that there was some deal being concocted by Trump